Saying no is probably the hardest thing we have to do as entrepreneurs. Now, it gets easier over time, but it's very difficult in the beginning because in the beginning, we're trying to get cash. We need cash to survive. It's oxygen. But there's three things I like to talk about as it relates to how to say no as an entrepreneur. And they all come back to strategy because strategy is a series of choices we need to make. And the three most important choices that I like to start with are who's our customer? What's our brand promise to that customer? And then what are the things that we're really, really good at behind the scenes that nobody else sees that allows us to deliver that value to that customer?
You're listening to the Bright Podcast, where we interview business leaders to learn insights and tips they use to navigate their industry. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Hey, my name is Michael Cato. I'm the CEO of MAP Consulting. We help companies accelerate their performance. We're based in Newport Beach, but we serve clients around the world.
Michael Cato, so great to have you today on the Bright Podcast. I'm so excited. You're such an inspirational person, both on stage, off stage, with your background history. We want to dive into that, but most importantly, I want to get some clips that we can use to teach entrepreneurs, leaders, whether they're an education system, whether they're entrepreneurs leading a business, a nonprofit, or they just want to make an impact. So today I want to ask you a series of questions, and this is a casual conversation. What's unique to your organization in your industry, and what makes you different?
You know what? Listen, Josh, I think that's probably the most important question any of us can ask ourselves as CEOs. What makes us different? What makes us remarkable? What makes us hard to copy? Because ultimately, that's the essence of strategy. And if you get that right, you can create sustainable competitive advantage. And that's what we're trying to do. So at MAP, we have certain capabilities that we're very, very good at. We are excellent at developing leadership, not only the current generation, but the next generation. And we're excellent at implementing accountability in the business. And when you take those two things that we're great at and you combine it with a former CEO that is doing the training and doing the coaching of the team, that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us hard to copy.
Let's double click on that for a quick sec. Yeah. Accountability is huge. So many people say, oh, here's my past, here's my present, and someday maybe I'll do this. What's one of the biggest tips you would give anyone about how to hold themselves accountable for the future so they can make that impact today going forward?
Write down your three main goals for next year. For your business. You might have a couple goals for your family or your personal life or your health, whatever it is. Write down your goals. That's the very, very first step.
What's the second step?
Put them in front of you where you see them every day. Put them on the mirror in front of you. I remember when we first started our last company, Restaurants on the Run, I had a goal. And unfortunately, the year was 1993. And my goal was find an idea for a business. And I wrote it down, put it on a Post-it, found the Post-it the other day, by the way, put it on the mirror. 2 months later, we had an idea for a business. It changes your mindset.
Yeah.
Third step. So first step is have a goal, write it down. Second step is put it in front of you. Third step, make sure that you review that goal and set action items every week or every 30 days to keep it in front of you. You have to have a cadence to see if you're performing or not. It's just like getting on a scale. You get on a scale and you say, I want to weigh 138 pounds. A month later, you get back on and you're like, I weigh 139. What didn't I do? What did I do that worked? You ask yourself those questions and then you do it again. We're going to have a goal. We're going to write it down and look at it every day. We're going to set some action steps around those. Technically, I combine the third and fourth step. The third step is create some action steps. The fourth step should be review performance on a regular basis. And then the fifth and final step is celebrate success.
Amazing. Can you share a great story about business that you've found helpful to yourself, or maybe something that you went through that helps others?
Well, yes. 5 years into my business, I was told that I should be fired as the CEO. Imagine being told that. But at that point, I knew I needed to make a decision. I needed to decide if I was going to listen to this advice or if I was going to just ignore it. And I knew deep down that I had to listen to it because I wanted to be what I coined the entrepreneurial CEO, which is the CEO that combines everything that's great about a founder, but also all the things that are great about a professional. And I knew if I could put those things together, I could lead our organization better. Because so many times an organization is the reflection of the founder or the CEO.
Walk us through 1, 2, or 3 changes that you made that turned you into a business person instead of just that founder that held it back.
Yeah. 2 or 3 things that I did through that process, besides obviously diving into learning, the 3 tangible outputs were, I would say, 1, much more focused. I became much more focused as a CEO, which, as I said, the organization became more focused. The second thing was, once we got focused, I really started to understand how to build a culture that was aligned to that focus of what we were going to do. And then once we had the focus and we had everybody pointing in the right direction, we implemented an accountability system in the business where people always knew what they were being measured on, and they always knew how that impacted the goals of the company. So those 3 steps of getting focused on where we're going and what we're focused on, aligning the organization around that, and then holding all of us accountable to a plan to get there, those are the 3 big changes that I had to make.
So, Caito, how can an early stage leader or entrepreneur learn what to say no to quickly?
Saying no is probably the hardest thing we have to do as entrepreneurs. Now, it gets easier over time, but it's very difficult in the beginning. We're trying to get cash. We need cash to survive. It's oxygen. But there's 3 things I like to talk about as it relates to how to say no as an entrepreneur. And they all come back to strategy, because strategy is a series of choices we need to make. And the 3 most important choices that I like to start with are: who's our customer? What's our brand promise to that customer? And then what are the things that we're really, really good at behind the scenes that nobody else sees that allows us to deliver that value to that customer? So when I'm faced with opportunities, I look at those 3 things and I'm like, is this really the target customer that can take advantage of everything we offer? Can we really deliver on the promise to this particular customer? And are we staying in our lane? Like, are we leveraging the things that we're great at, or are we going to try to do things that we're not great at and not be able to deliver on that value to that customer? So that's the way I look at it.
Caito, what's one of your favorite sayings in your organization that you're often reminding leaders of?
I'm asked so much about where to put energy and where to put focus. And what I always say is focus on the vital few. Focus on the right metrics, or as we call it, the vital factors that are really pushing you forward or holding you back as an organization. And the first time I really learned about this was we had our food delivery business called Restaurants on the Run, and we were delivering food to homes and to businesses. Think Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub. And after reading a book called Good to Great, we started to understand this thing called an economic denominator, which was what we had to ask ourselves, what's our profit per X? So what's our X? And we figured out and said, okay, our profit per X is profit per delivery. For some companies, it could be profit per location, profit per employee, profit per square foot, whatever it is for them. For us, it was profit per delivery. That was our vital few. That was the one KPI, the one vital factor that we looked at all the time. And as soon as we started looking at that and saying, how do we get more of X? How do we drive profit per X? It changed the entire lens that we looked at the business through. And what happened? We changed who our customer was. We went from delivering to homes and businesses to being exclusively focused on business to business. It was an incredible change that changed not only the trajectory of the company and the profit, but also the valuation once we eventually sold it.
That was $1 million answer. Caito, what's your favorite project you've ever worked on and why?
That's easy for me, it is, because my favorite project was, I told the story about how I made a transition to becoming an entrepreneurial CEO. Well, that started with understanding what to measure in my business, our business. And once we started to understand what made our business tick, and we started measuring the right things at every level of the organization, and then every person to be measured on the right things, we just started to see the business trajectory take off. And it was all due to the fact that not only were we measuring the right things, but we were coaching people and holding them accountable to what they said they wanted to do and how these goals all lined up to each other. That was easily the most fun I had. It was hard, but nothing in life, that's easy is worthwhile. Well, sometimes it is, but that was the best project. So much so that after we sold that company, I said, what am I gonna do now as a 45-year-old, who loves, accountability and loves entrepreneurship? And so I circled back to this company, MAP, that actually taught us how to do that in our own business. And we put a deal together, and I've been working on that company because we wanna help more companies do for themselves what MAP did for us. So that's the project I'm working on right now, and I'm loving it.
That's awesome. Next question for you is about company culture. How do you build great company culture at your organization?
Wow. Not always easy, right? What makes a business complex? People, personalities. So for me, it comes down to a couple steps. Number one, we've got to, as a leader, we have to paint that envisioned future of where we're going as an organization, because people want to be a part of something cool. They want to be a part of a winning team. Okay. So that's step one. Step two is we've got to make sure that everyone in the organization is on board with that vision. And if they're not on board, that's fine. They should work somewhere else where they can be at a place that they really connect to the vision and the purpose of the organization. So number one, where are we going? Number two, do we all agree that that's what we want to do? And then number three, the third and final part of this culture equation is, do we have a plan to get there? And does everybody know their role in that plan? Another way to say that is accountability, okay? But you can't stop there. The counterpart to that last piece of the equation is, are you developing your people? Because your best people, yeah, they want to work for you, but they're not going to work for you if they're not getting developed, if you don't understand what their dreams are and where they want to go. So you have to combine it. Where are we going? Does everybody agree? And are we helping people achieve their goals that will help the company achieve theirs?
Yeah, what a great set of phrases there too, Caito, because you're essentially, and we see this for those of you who have ever applied for a job, any of your listeners, or if you're an employer or leadership, whether you're at education or anywhere else, you got to sell the vision. I always tell my team, we are a ship and we're going from Los Angeles to Hawaii. We got a long way to go and we're going to course correct. And even the leader is going to mop the floors on the deck every once in a while. We all have to make sure we want to be on that ship, and we all have to make sure, I love what you said. Sell that the ship is awesome and this is where we're going. Does everyone want to be on the ship? And then also, do we all know what our role is on the ship? Yes, you'll go into other things. What do you want to do someday? Do you want to be captain? Let's get you on that captain thing, which I absolutely love. I couldn't agree more with you. How great is that? When you know you love the ship, and you know you're going somewhere and you know what your role is, which for those of you listening, if you hear the word KPI, it is a phrase, key performance indicator. Studies show that if we as individuals know what success looks like at the end of the day, hey, if I just make this many calls, or if I help this many people, or if I just teach this many classes, I am successful. People want to know, what does success look like? What does failure look like? And if you get the KPIs, key performance indicators, you get down to what Caito says is your vital few, maybe the vital one, and say, if you do this every day, you're a winner. If you fail here, it's okay, but this is failure. This is winning. Absolutely love that. And I couldn't agree more about your company culture suggestions that you have. Where have you failed on that, Michael Cato? What has gone wrong in the past that you warn people of?
For me, I think even with my current company, sometimes I'm not great at aligning everybody and painting the picture, and I have to practice. And the good news is my people in the organization will look at me and they'll be like, are you really getting us aligned? Are we really having the right conversations that we need to have? And I get told that on a regular basis, and it's something that I have to work on every single day. And even though, as the CEO, I may think I know that I'm aligning the team, a lot of times I'm not. And it's up to we as the leaders have to be open to being challenged on a regular basis. If you're building a team, if we're building a team where it's just a bunch of yes people, it's not gonna work. But if you're building a team where they're challenging you, you have the culture of, great, I wanna hear that, thank you, and I'm gonna make some changes, and we're gonna get aligned better, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. That's so important for us as leaders.
Yeah, so true. And another thing that we're finding, Caito, that I'd love to get your insight into is we wanted to get inside of the customer's head so much that we named her. Her name's Barbara. She's 25 to 55-year-old, struggling with this, giving her kid's begging for a phone, or already got a phone, and they're begging for Fortnite or all these apps. And she needs somebody to come up beside her and trust and know that they're not paid by big apps to lie to her and they're trustworthy and stuff. And so we're always asking, she's our North Star, what does Barbara want? Does she want a 2-minute video or does she want a 37-minute video? We always know that answer. If we just get inside of her heart, how do we get inside that head? What is your advice to people on how to become Barbara, how to get inside the head of the customer, or even just what would you tell them about defining that customer?
I think I'm gonna have to define my Barbara better after listening to you, Josh. That's an awesome story. So the first question of strategy is, who's your customer? And once you start to understand who that is, I think as CEOs, I think I can do a better job of this. We have to ask ourselves, are we spending enough time with our clients to understand who they are? And if they are, do we have a mechanism to get some of that feedback back? Not just in surveys, but real conversations. So I think that will go a long way. But I believe as CEOs, we have to spend time with our clients. We have to understand what makes them tip, what they're looking for, how they're using the product, how they're not using the product. They may be using our product or service in a way that we didn't even intend it to be used. And guess what? That could be the key to the growth of your organization. But we have to be there to see it and talk to the client. And I am going to get better at that just based on this conversation with you, Josh, because I like the fact that you are challenging me to be better.
I think you're terrific. You've challenged me so many times. I will say, though, that as soon as we started defining Barbara, we actually hire more Barbaras than anybody else. We have more Barbaras in our company. We're female forward because who's better at our customer than our customer? But once we really honed in and named this person, and I'd say for all of our listeners, it can be a man, it can be a woman. You want to be careful on that one. I always tell the school districts, Her name is Barbara. Dads love us too. And they always go, yeah, yeah. But as soon as we did that, I don't show up to some of the meetings, Caito. I go, hey, you all are going to do what's best. You're going to take care of her. I have to be in another meeting presenting for this person. I know you all will do it right. And they just hone in on that. Not what does Josh care about, but what's best for her with our level of standards, right?
Yeah.
Former Disney brand marketer. How do we make the videos freakishly good and short and sweet and good, but we serve and love that person? Changed my life.
If I can go back to what you just said though, what's really important there, by the way, the fact that you hire Barbaras, I love that. When we bought MAP and started to realize that our best consultants we have were former clients, that's my first filter now, is even the executive team that we just built, all former clients who implemented MAP in their business, sold to companies, and it's like now they're ready to kind of come and let's do this for more. But what I love about that is when you understand your Barbara, okay, and you spend the time with Barbara, you start to understand what makes Barbara tick. You start to realize how our products, not only our products and services, but our capabilities, the things we do behind the scenes, how do they match up to what Barbara needs? And it gets back to a question you asked me earlier, which is where do you say yes and where do you say no? You got to make sure that the things that we're really good at are what Barbara needs and wants, and that those things are hard for other people to copy because we put them together in a way that delivers a unique value to Barbara, where she would never think to go anywhere else. But we can't figure that out sometimes unless we're having really good conversations with Barbara.
You've hinted at this, and I couldn't agree more. And I think we have to unlock what you're saying without saying it is lots of conversations with the end user rather than internally in our vacuum, our bubble of conference rooms, or, oh yeah, we're doing a good job. We have this jargon. Throw all that aside, listeners. Talk to your customer, direct customer conversation a day, writing down, hey, what do you think of this? How can we do this? We want to show you some new features. What are your thoughts? Would you go down that rabbit hole with us? Would you try this new thing? Just want to get some feedback from you. I would argue it might not be enough. At least for our business, everyone is different. For school districts, we're finding that some of the best superintendents, the executives that are at the highest level running $100 million budgets, are the ones that are also spending a little time in an elementary school class. They're doing class visits, the middle schools, the high schools, because guess who the most important person in the world is? The kiddos on the ground floor. They are the product. Resilient children leaving better than they came. So what is your advice to those listening, learning? You've mentioned this in the undertone of this conversation so many times. What are some of your listening metrics that you look for?
Listening metrics. Well, you said something important, which was, can you talk to one a day? And talking to one customer a day doesn't need to necessarily be an existing customer or client. It could be a future client. What I'm listening for is what are the benefits they're getting from our product? Because those benefits are what they're going to talk about. So I'm listening to see if they can create a tangible way to say how they're benefiting from our product. Because if they can do that, then I can figure out and work with them and say, well, how do we amplify your voice so that other people, other potential clients, colleagues, friends, whatever they might see what you're doing and how you're benefiting and contact us. Because that's what it's about. You've heard me rant about this before. How do we understand our best customers, what makes them tick, and how do we turn them into influencers? To me, that's the game we need to all be in. If we're really delivering to Barbara, as you call your customer, and she loves us, how do we make it easy for her to tell everybody in her network about us?
Yeah, so true. A lot of people meet different, and I know in the beginning, some teams will push back and go, we don't want to meet daily. Some will do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We figured out a good marketing cadence, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but our sales team is every day, 30 minutes. So planning, and our whole company changed when we did that. We serve Barbara so much better with a really good weekly meeting cadence, daily and weekly. What are you seeing in some of your clientele at MAP Consulting? What do you recommend to people?
So meeting cadence is critical for a couple of reasons. Number one, communication, and number two, accountability. Those are very, very important outcomes from the meeting cadence. And people are doing meetings, daily, weekly. The most important cadence that I've found, and I like to call this the most important habit in your business, is the monthly meeting for 2, 3, 4 hours, where you're going deep on how the company is performing. It's a diagnostic of the organization, just like doing a physical checkup on yourself. It's a physical checkup on your business. And you take your executive team, you sit down, you look at what's working, what's not working, let's problem solve what's not working and create some action. So we're taking a subjective look at the business. Then let's look at the dashboard. Let's look at our scorecard. How are we doing? Are we on track? How are we doing against the plan? Then we look at our goals, we set new goals, and we talk about what we learned in that meeting. So it's very simple. You're taking a look at your business, working, not working, subjectively, objectively, setting goals, setting new goals, That's the key. That to me is the most important meeting you can have in your business.
And that's the monthly meeting you're saying.
It's a monthly meeting. So the most important meeting that I have found that a company can have is a monthly diagnostic meeting. That meeting that happens at the executive level where you look at what's working in your business, what's not working in your business, how are we doing on all of our metrics, are we on track for the plan, how did everybody do on what they said they were going to do, their goals last month, and what are the new goals. That to me is the most important meeting any company can have. And once you get good at it and you understand how it works, you then have that exact same meeting in every department at every level of your organization. You want to keep your company focused, you want to keep them moving in the right direction, that's how you get it done.
That's so good. I think that's one of my favorite tips from you, because that's an area we can work on. But also those little tiny cadence for all of our listeners here today, those little cadence ones are great. Check-in, accountability. How'd you do yesterday? What do you do today? What do you need help on? Awesome. Let's break out. Some call it the scrum. It's amazing, a standing meeting.
Yeah,
but I
stuff.
love, and then at the end of the week, we're hearing and we're trying and testing this out in my system and my team, a little bit of a longer meeting on a Monday or a weekly one, longer. And then I love your monthly idea. It's 2 hours and it's executives. I think it's really powerful, probably for every single organization.
The reason it's powerful is because there's certain things you can do daily, there's certain things you can do weekly. But taking a good hard look at your business on a monthly basis, which is 12 times a year, is about the right cadence. Doing something that exhaustive every week is too much. You're going to burn out your team. You need time to get things done. And so that monthly cadence where you can really take that look is critical. Let me tell you why MAP does what we do and how we came to be. Early on in our existence, we're 64 years old. We found that there were a lot of companies, larger size companies, say 5 to 10 million in revenue, 20, 30 employees, with CEOs that were humble, but hungry to grow. So they wanted to grow, but they knew they needed help. So we would go in as consultants and we would help them put a management system in, goal setting, planning, and so on and so forth. And after doing that for a couple of years, we realized that they were failing as an organization. And we had to figure out why were they failing. And what we figured out was that they didn't know how to be managers. So we identified the 6 things that they had to get right as managers that they weren't getting right in their business. And we paused the consulting, built that training, and then relaunched with not only the training of the managers, but also the implementation of the accountability system in the business. And when you put those 2 together, they reinforce each other. And those businesses just started to take off. And we knew at that point that we had our secret sauce.
Caito, I love what you're talking about with MAP Consulting about especially my favorite part is it's neat as an outsider looking at your business but the coaching is the most powerful thing to me because the accountability is one of my biggest weaknesses. I will tell you what one of our promises is, our brand promise to a school district. Yes, it's cool that we do weekly live events. We put teens in a program because teens loving hear from teens. I know you've got teens and they don't want to hear from dad. They want to hear from other teens their age, peers, maybe a couple years older. And then the last one is this amazing newsletter that we have that parents all over the country, tens of thousands, are in it. But the one brand promise that I can do that's numerical, that they love, that works, is we will get 10 times the parent engagement in your community. We will have 10 times the amount of parents show up, not just on one night, but all year long. We gamify it. They get gift cards. We do all this stuff to get that 10x number that they're so afraid of because our quality of our product is so good. Our trainings are bragging about the amazing barbers that work at our company, these moms that do our research. But also, how do we get people into the program to watch it? We gamify it and we get 10x. And that's our brand promise, is the best program in the world. Boy, does it take effort. Does it give me gray hair? But it gets you 10x the number that you're currently lacking as a school district. School districts always tell us right now, not many parents are coming out because they think, oh, that problem with kids on Snapchat, that's this other girl's problem, that other daughter's problem in school, or that kid. And there's all these other bad parents out there. And as soon as we gamified it, parents started coming out. You're buying me coffee. You're giving me a guaranteed gift card if I follow your participation and do all this stuff.
That's great.
And guess what? Even a CEO like you, Caito, if I bought you coffee, you come to something, I'll go. Because I'm ethically bribing you. And I want to tell all of our viewers, does a world exist? Obviously, we want to be legal and stuff, where you gamify this. If you come, if you participate, not only are you going to protect your family, protect your community, help my nonprofit get better because you're going to give us feedback at the end, but when you fill out the form, we're going to buy you coffee that you can then enjoy and talk with your kids about this, make your life a little easier. And so that's our brand promise, which is so important. We just discovered recently is that's their biggest hurdle, is how do we do that? What do you tell other people about finding that brand promise, your clientele? What are the trends you see once they figure out what that is?
Listen, what I love about what you're doing, you asked me in the middle of that, how does this sound? How does that work? Listen, if you're giving that kind of guarantee and you're saying, hey, let me buy a cup of coffee and so on and so forth. If you're being authentic and honest and being a trustworthy company, I think it's fine. As long as it's clear as day for that client and you're not trying to trick them, like you're really delivering value and you're being honest about it, I think that's great. Brand promises are really important. And the more that you can put some sort of guarantee behind the brand promise, or as Jim Collins would say, a catalytic mechanism, the more powerful your brand promise is going to be. But you need to be able to measure it. And some people will say, hey, what's your leading brand promise? What's your secondary? What's your third? However many you want to have. I think I like to keep things simple. And the more that you can lead with a brand promise that you can measure and potentially even guarantee, like the sky's the limit on your business. But you got to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Caito, why do you think leaders get so bogged down?
That's the crux of business. Where do leaders fall down? Where do they get stuck? Quick story, I was meeting with a group of about 20 leaders the other day, and we were talking about like accountability and goal setting and putting a better system in place. And they were like, yeah, that's great. That's what we need to do. And like, oh gosh, I just feel like I'm always so busy and I just got to do everything myself. And I go, well, why aren't you properly delegating? And they're like, well, we try, but they're not properly trained. And so we just do it ourselves. And we miss that as organizations. We think that we can grow our business by just pouring more stuff on top of people. But if we don't pause, train our managers how to delegate, and then make sure that we're training the people underneath them, we're just going to continue to spin our wheels because everybody's going to be too busy to get the right things done.
So true. Caito, so many of my friends are just wondering what's their things? What do they got to do? You mentioned earlier there's 6 things that every leader or manager needs to do. What are those?
Yeah, you know what? I'm so glad you asked that because as CEOs, as managers, if we're running a team, there's 6 things, as I said earlier, that we have to get right. And when you combine those 6 things with a cadence of accountability, a system in your business, great things happen. Here are the 6 things. Number 1, it's called leadership. We need to know how to inspire people, paint that bigger picture. We need to coach them to development, number 1. Number 2, we need to be able to communicate. When I say communicate, I mean the basics. Like we need to communicate and make sure that people understand what we just said. So we have to ask them to play it back. Third thing, we have to be organized for success. Do we know how to delegate? Do we understand time management? Or is our organization structured the right way? Number 4, we need to understand how to get the best people, onboard them, and retain them. Number 5, you need to have a plan to execute against that vision. And number 6, our people need to understand how to measure the right things and hold people accountable. So there's 6 things that every CEO, every team leader has to get right in order to really drive the performance of our people. Because if you think about it, what defines the performance capacity of a company? For the most part, the quality of their people.
Yeah, so well said. I think one of the biggest things too is play that back for me. I love that you said that. Like, how did you understand that? Play it back for me. Oh, I just got inspired by what you said. The rest of it's brilliant. That one's one I'm going to work on. What a great key takeaway. Michael Cato, owner of Mac Consulting, a former client of it, and now the owner, taking it to the next level, helping companies all over the United States and probably internationally as well to really be better leaders, better managers, make a big impact in the community. I'm so thankful for you. Thanks for joining us today, Michael.
Hey, listen, Josh, it's been a pleasure. Listen, when you accelerate the performance of your people and you combine that with a system to accelerate the performance of the company, unbelievable things happen to your organization. Not only the trajectory of the organization, but the culture as well. So Josh, you're doing awesome things. You're making a real impact. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all of our listeners and our viewers. Remember, whenever you're posting online, your employees and your kids are watching, and plug in my book. Remember to keep it light, bright, and polite. They're all watching. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you for listening to the Bright Podcast, where we interview experts on business, real estate, innovation, growth, and high tech to talk about their leadership skills and tactics in their industry. As always, keep it light, bright, and polite because others will see what we're doing online. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you on the next episode.